A man worth billions stood quietly at the entrance of a crowded restaurant on the night of his birthday. The host barely glanced at him before saying the words no one had ever dared to tell him before. "Sorry, we don't have a table for you." No one recognized him. No red carpets, no special treatment, no assistants clearing the way. Fori Arsabe, just a lonely man holding a small birthday cake box he had bought for himself. What happened next would change not only his night, but the life of a young waitress who had no idea who he really was. Ethan Cole had spent decades building one of the largest investment empires in the country. His name appeared on skyscrapers, charities, and magazine covers, but wealth had quietly taken everything else from him. His parents had passed away years earlier. His marriage ended long ago, and most of the people around him were employees rather than friends. When his birthday arrived that year, the silence in his penthouse felt heavier than usual. No calls, no visits, just the quiet hum of the city below. Instead of hosting a grand party like he once did, Ethan decided to do something simple. He walked alone through downtown streets until he found a small restaurant glowing with warm lights and laughter. Families filled the tables, couples celebrated, and waiters rushed between guests carrying plates of food. It felt alive. For a moment Ethan imagined what it might feel like to celebrate like everyone else. But when he stepped to the front desk, the young host barely looked up. "Reservation?" "Was hoping to get a table," Ethan replied calmly. The host checked the screen and shook his head. "Sorry, we're completely full tonight." Ethan glanced around the restaurant. A few tables looked half empty, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded and turned toward the door, quietly accepting the rejection. For the first time in years, he felt invisible. A billionaire who could buy the entire building couldn't even get a seat inside it. As he reached the door, a voice stopped him. "Excuse me, sir." A young waitress hurried toward him, still holding a notepad in her hand. Her name tag read Maya. She had been watching the moment from across the room. "I noticed you didn't get a table," she said gently. "It's really busy tonight, but if you don't mind a small corner near the kitchen, I can make space." Ethan looked surprised. "Are you sure?" she smiled. "Everyone deserves somewhere to sit on their birthday." Ethan paused. "How did you know it was my birthday?" Maya pointed to the small cake box in his hands. "Lucky guess." For the first time that night, Ethan laughed softly. A few minutes later he was sitting at a tiny table tucked beside the kitchen door. It wasn't elegant. Waiters rushed past constantly, and the sound of dishes clattering filled the air. But Maya treated him like he was the most important guest in the restaurant. She brought him warm bread, checked on him often, even placed a small candle on top of the cake he had brought. The candle flickered to life. Maya said quietly, "Make a wish." Ethan stared at the tiny flame longer than expected. No one had said those words to him in years. "What would you wish for?" Maya asked curiously. Ethan smiled faintly. "Honestly, probably a normal night like this." He laughed, assuming he was joking. To her he just looked like a quiet middle-aged man in a simple coat. The night continued. Maya stopped by his table whenever she had a spare moment. She told him about working double shifts to help her younger brother through school. She talked about her dream of someday opening a small cafe where everyone felt welcome, no matter who they were. Ethan listened carefully, more interested in her story than the expensive deals he usually discussed with executives. At one point Maya noticed he had barely touched his phone all evening. "You're not texting anyone on your birthday?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "Not many people to text." Something in his voice made Maya pause. She had served hundreds of customers, but something about him felt different. Not sad exactly, just quietly alone. Near closing time, the restaurant manager approached Maya with a serious look. "Why did you seat someone without a reservation?" he whispered. "I used the corner table," Maya replied. About to leave, the manager glanced toward Ethan and frowned. "We can't do that during peak hours." Maya looked worried. "He's already eating. I'll handle it." The manager sighed and walked away, clearly annoyed. A little later Maya returned to Ethan's table with the bill, but before placing it down she hesitated. "You know what?" she said, sliding it back into her pocket. "Dessert is on the house tonight. For sure." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Why would you do that?" "Because no one should celebrate their birthday alone," she answered with a kind smile. Ethan stared at her for a moment, genuinely moved by the gesture. No one in the room knew who he was. No one expected anything from him. Tombro. Yet this young waitress had gone out of her way simply to be kind. When Ethan finally stood up to leave, he thanked her sincerely. "You made this the best birthday I've had in years." Maya smiled politely. "I'm glad." But as Ethan walked toward the exit, the restaurant manager suddenly rushed past Maya while staring at his phone. His eyes widened. He looked again at Ethan, then back at the phone. "Wait, sir," the manager called out nervously. The entire restaurant slowly turned their attention toward the door, because in that moment, the manager had just realized the quiet man who couldn't get a table was actually Ethan Cole, billionaire owner of the entire restaurant chain, and the only person who had treated him with kindness all night. Crash was the young waitress who had no idea who she was serving.